Hello, welcome everyone to Channels, the Nextflow podcast. My name is Phil Yules and I'm speaking to you from Sweden in Europe. This here is Marcel.
Hello, I'm speaking to you from Brazil.
And this is Chris.
And hi. Oh, sorry, Phil. I'll jump in. Hi, I'm Chris. I speak sometimes from Germany, but at the moment I'm down here in New Zealand, at the bottom of New Zealand. Yeah.
Cool. The Nextflow community is always humming with activity, and today we're going to be chatting to you about a few of the latest things that have come across our Slack notifications, trying to keep you up to date. You could say that this is an input channel of news direct to your headphones. Too cheesy? Maybe we'll drop that for the next one.
That's good. That's good. We'll stick with that.
So welcome everyone. So this is a new thing for us. It's a new format podcast. Something we've been kind of kicking the idea around for a few months. So for those of you who don't know us, we all work at Sekira, but we're all developer advocates, funded via the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative grant money. And we all work with the Nextflow and the NF Core community and basically do all kind of community stuff. We're deliberately very international, as you can tell. So for me, it's nearly 9 p.m. It's about -8 degrees outside, freezing cold. And I'm sort of sat here in amongst all the snow. And Marcel, it's a bit different for you, I guess.
Yeah, you can see like my shirt is waving. I have like this huge fan beside me and it's a bit warm here, I would say. Still light day, daylight's fine.
Where exactly you sat? Where are you in Brazil?
So I'm in Natal. So I always like to say that Brazil is like an arrow pointing to Africa. So I'm really at the tip. It's the closest point to Africa in South America. So it's very close to the ocean. It's very windy. It's very nice, but we have a lot of sunlight. Like I think it's over 300 days per year of sunlight. So it can get hot.
I'm turning all the lights on at about 2 p.m. here at the moment. The days are pretty short.
Oh my God.
And then Chris, you just crawled out of bed, right? You're presumably still sat in your pants.
Yeah, no, I've just crawled out of bed. I spend a lot of my time in Germany, which at the moment is the middle of winter. But I've come back down to New Zealand to see some friends and family for a while and do a bit of work out of Dunedin, which is right at the bottom for anyone that doesn't know. So I left the German winter and I've come into New Zealand summer, which is a really, really fortunate situation to be in.
Very sensible.
Although the time zones can be difficult.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was exactly 12. You and I are exactly 12 hours out, which is kind of a fun challenge. So anyway, I mean, we all work a lot with NF Core and with Nextflow and all things kind of bioinformatics. And basically, we thought this would be a fun thing to do because we have regular meetings, and one of the things we do is we try and keep up to date with what's going on in the community. And we're having our meetings just between the three of us, and we're like, this is super cool. We should just do this on a live stream and get the word out about all this cool stuff that's going on in the community. Also, for those of you who've been part of a community, you might remember back at the start of 2022, in fact, for several years now, we've been doing an annual survey for everybody. And one of the bits of feedback that kind of came up in that is some people say that the community is so big and so active that stuff is just happening all the time and it's difficult to stay up to date with it. So if you ever feel a bit kind of overwhelmed, then hopefully this podcast will help you a little bit, just kind of give you little digests of what's going on. So yeah, it's a new podcast for us, but you might remember that, wasn't there already a Nextflow podcast or something? And you're quite right. There's one called NF Cast, where Rob Lalonde at Sekira has been interviewing people in the community, myself included. Actually, I think I was episode 1 before I was working at Sekira, but. And so that still exists, but we didn't want to make it too confusing with all different podcasts. So we've kind of merged the two together. NF Cast going forward will now be also called Channels. So there'll be episodes which are kind of news and views, which is like this, us just chatting. And then, the professionals come on every now and then, and Rob shows us how it's done. And we'll interview, and those episodes will specifically be like sort of more in-depth interviews with people in the community. And in fact, the next one of those is going to be next week, I think. So the next episode of this podcast will be Rob, two Robs, Rob Lalonde from Sekira chatting to Robert Petit. So that's what we're doing here today. Welcome to Channels. Hope you like the pun in the name. Hopefully it's easy enough to Google and to remember. And for us, then we're going to kind of try and do roughly weekly episodes of about 20 minutes. And we'll do it like a season. So we're going to, this first one will run to kind of December and January, and then we'll have a bit of a break, and then we'll kind of carry on a little bit. We are planning eventually to do these ones, at least for News and Views, as a live stream, both on Twitter and on YouTube. So then you guys can kind of chime in with questions and we'll respond to them in real time. But for now, because of time zones and like me going on paternity leave and various other stuff, we're going to pre-record the first few episodes. But this one, I think we're probably going to put out like first thing tomorrow morning. So it's almost live. Yeah. So if any of you are into sort of the nerdy podcasty stuff, you might kind of notice, if you're watching the video, you might notice the format. We're using a tool called StreamYard, which lets us to kind of format all the different the graphics and move our pictures around and stuff, which is pretty cool. And that will be going out, video will be going out to YouTube and Twitter, Twitter Spaces when it's live, just YouTube to start off with. And we'll also be putting out the audio to Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, and a whole bunch of the podcasting platforms via the anchor.fm website. If you want to follow along, we actually have redone, so you can subscribe on Spotify or whatever, wherever you listen to your podcast, and subscribe on YouTube. And we also have two new places. So we've rebuilt, if this is the Nextflow website, I'm sure everyone's seen this. You might notice there's a new tab up here on the top which says podcast. If you click podcast, you'll see it now says channels for Nextflow podcast. And you can see all of the previous episodes that Rob did, which I mentioned. And then as we do new episodes, they'll start popping up here. And you can jump in and see the YouTube embed. And also for ours, we'll have like a little bit of text saying what we've talked about with some links, so you can click through and find things. And the other thing then is we have Slack. So we will be using, we've just created a new Slack channel a few seconds ago called Channels Podcast on the Nextflow Slack. And so we want to hear from you there. Talk about what we've been discussing, disagree with us, and most of all come up with ideas of cool stuff you think we should talk about. Anything you come up with there, we'll lob into our planning, and it will pop up onto a podcast soon. And all that planning also happens within GitHub as well, because we're all about open source. So there's a project board under the Nextflow organization called Channels Podcast, and you can see we'll be planning everything we're going to talk about there. So you'll be able to view all of that very transparently.
Yeah, and I think just like Phil mentioned, we have like a huge community, people from all over the place, and we are always following what's being discussed on Twitter, on Reddit, on BioStars, on Slack, the NF Core, the Nextflow. I'm in Latin America. We have people all over the world, but still there's so much going on. So whenever we have something new, you can just go to the Slack channel and share with us, and we would love to talk about anything new and exciting about NF Core and Nextflow. So really feel like you're part of this by contributing these topics that you could discuss, or answering a few questions about the project or how things are going.
Yeah, cool. All right, should we move on?
Yeah.
Yep, let's move on.
Marcel, you're going to lead us out, I think. You're going to talk to us a bit about Nextflow for astronomers, or
yeah. So this is a very interesting thing. Like I was just talking now about this thing that we have like so many different places, so many different people in different environments and from different backgrounds using Nextflow, contributing to Nextflow. And there was this recently, Nicholas Swainstone, he brought this idea of creating a pipeline for astronomy, for pulsar search. Pulsar radar or something like this. So not only working on this pipeline, but in the end, he also did this Nextflow training. So it's a Nextflow training, just like any other, teaching you how to use Nextflow. So this is the website. You can see on the screen also. So it's just a regular Nextflow training with all these things we're always talking about. However, it's aimed at astronomers. It's very, very nice. And at some point on the second day, you even have a workflow example for astronomers. So here you have like the observation data. You can find candidate pulsars and classify them. Then you have other workflows that could do other things, run machine learning to classify as positive or negative. So there are a lot of nice things. So here you have the code to play with this pipeline, with this Nextflow pipeline, specifically for an astronomy type of problem. And that's very nice because, like Nextflow was created a long time ago aimed at bioinformatics, but ever since people have been using it for a lot of different things. So during the Nextflow Summit in October, one of the talks was using Nextflow to run a pipeline in economical sciences and try to understand a few things. And then you have people applying Nextflow to all these sort of different environments, different data, different fields. And here we have another example in astronomy. So not only a pipeline, but also a training. So in the end, of course, like you can go to the channel Astronomy and have discussions there with people who are behind this, such as Nicholas Strangestone. So cheers to Nicholas, very, very nice contribution. I was very happy when I saw that. And this is the type of thing that every day we have new pipelines in different fields, and you should pay attention to these things because every day we're going to have something new like that.
Super cool. We've been talking about this I've been talking about it for years, that Nextflow is big in bioinformatics and genomics, but there's no reason why, lots of people are doing data pipelines and stuff, and it's the tool itself has nothing specific about bioinformatics. And I love it. It is starting to make it outside of our little community now, and more that the community is growing into other fields, and we're like starting to see it used in other places. What's going to be next?
I know what I can tell.
but Marcel, you mentioned there was a talk at the summit about economics. In case anyone's tuning into this and you didn't track what that was, we had the Nextflow Summit, which is this kind of big, used to be an annual event, and it was stopped for a bit because of COVID, but we had this big one in Barcelona in October this year, October 2022.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. The website's up still at summit.nextflow.io. If you check that out, you'll be able to find all of the videos for every single talk up on YouTube and embedded on the webpage. So you can go and find the exact talk that Marcel was talking about, if that sounds interesting. Pretty cool. Right, I think I was going to come up next. So what did I have for you? I feel bad. We got the order a bit wrong here. We should put you next, Chris. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. Actually, I'm going to take over.
Go for it.
One thing I wanted to talk about was Evan, the CEO of Sakira, and I were very, very lucky to attend some conferences in Melbourne very recently. I'm bad with acronyms, but SBEI, ACBS, AMSI, a number of conferences that were sort of held one after another in Melbourne.
This is Melbourne, Australia, yeah.
And as part of that, it was really fantastic. This is Melbourne, Australia, yeah, bottom of the world.
Yeah, not
close
like
to the bottom
Melbourne,
of the world.
US.
And as a part of that, we got to meet some fantastic community members, did a workshop, and there's a number of talks. But one of the things that was really fantastic was we got to link up with the Biocommons, which is an Australian initiative that is enhancing the digital life sciences through world-class, I guess, collaborative, distributed infrastructure. And one thing I've always really admired about them is they have a really great outreach and training program. I think it's absolutely world-class. And after discussions with them, it was really fantastic to get some feedback about what we can do as Nextflow, as NF Core, as Sakira. And one of the things we identified was of course, being over here in Asia Pacific, a lot of our previous trainings and workshops and seminars have been aimed at kind of the European or American time zones. And as part of my role and our role as developer advocates, we want to develop new initiatives in these kind of, for us, areas that we haven't had as much presence. So after some really great discussions with Biocommons, we're looking at sort of establishing sort of more workshops, training, seminars with them in that space. I think it's just fantastic. It was really great to get that feedback. And all I can say at the moment is hold that space. We've got a few ideas for early to middle of next year. And I think we're really excited to sort of to be able to work with such a fantastic group. And that's happening in Australia, but I'm over here in New Zealand at the moment. We're hoping to sort of establish similar connections with groups over here. So all I can say at the moment is hold that space, but also keep an eye out, because I think it's something that we will see more of in the Nextflow NF Core community as we kind of expand into these new areas and sort of make sure that there's support in all time zones. So that's really exciting for us.
It's really cool. I mean, time zones are tough. We've tried to address time zones with the NF Core events in the past, and sort of said like, oh, we'll do handovers and stuff, and it's sort of worked a bit, but I think anyone who was in Australia or New Zealand or in that time zone will have found the Gather Town space online pretty quiet. So it's like, even with best intentions, it's pretty difficult. So yeah, I'm quite excited that we might be able to sort of tie into existing networks and stuff down there and have a bit more of a focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've sort of even struggled to find time to record this 12 hours apart, and it's either first thing in the morning or last thing at night. But so I think I'm really excited, and watch this space.
Yeah, pretty cool. Cool.
Yeah,
Right.
when we talk about time zone, I keep remembering when we did the training, the NF Core training in October. And we had like the 3 trainings, right? One in the time zone that was friendly to Asian Pacific, one time zone that was friendly to Middle East, Europe, and Africa, one time zone that was friendly to America. But at the same time, we always wanted to help one another. So in the end, you could have like a nice time for you, but you would come up at night to watch mine, and I would go in the morning to watch yours. And I remember the first day that it was the last one, I think it was 2 p.m. mine. But then I wanted to see the Asia one, which was like 1:30, I think. And then Abhinav's one in Europe, which was like 8. So everyone was at the same time in all these time zones. It was that week was very active.
That was one that worked really well, actually. And I think the final day, Evan Harshall and myself, we said we'd give a talk in each one, and it seemed like such a good idea when we were up for it. But by the end of the third one, I was pretty dead, I've got to say. It was good fun. Yeah, cool stuff. All right, next up, NF Core tools. Talk a little bit about the NF Core project. If any of you, I'm sure everyone listening knows what NF Core is, but it is the user community. It's kind of part of a larger Nextflow community. Part of that is NF Core, and we focus and collaborate on a sort of subset of standards and tooling and pipelines and things. Quite central to all of that is a software package that we maintain, which is called NF Core Tools. And that's like, it's a helper package. You don't need it to run any of the pipelines or anything, but it helps. It's got some functionality to help you as a user, and also helps you develop new pipelines and stuff. And it's pretty exciting. I thought two of the people also, we've got really lucky to have funding for this now as of this year to work on this package, Julia and Matthias. And I was chatting to them earlier today, and I thought there might be a release by the time we were recording this, but I think it's going to be like any second now. We'll have to see if it pops up. But so I think it will be out by the time you watch this, and it will be version 2.7. But I'm going to just have a quick look at the changelog just to go through some highlights here. Some really like cool stuff here. We've got the big one is the NF Core sub workflows. So these are like, we have modules now for a little while, which is individual processes which you can collaborate on and share. But then there's also now sub workflows, which are chunks of pipelines. And those are now built into the tooling, so you can do NF Core sub workflow install, and that'll bring a whole chunk of workflow into your pipeline. So this brings up that collaboration sort of to the next level, and is going to be a really big thing for the community, I think. There's a massive amount of work in this release. It's a really big one. So hats off to everyone. It's not just the two of them. There's been a lot of major contributors in here, Fabian and Arthur and others. So really thanks to everyone who's worked on it, and yeah, jump in and have a play. If you're working in the NF Core world, there's a lot to do here, and I'm probably, because there's so much new code, there's also probably quite a lot of bugs. So please do tell us if you spot any. But yeah, it's going to be a big one. Have you guys tried out the dev version yet? Have you been playing around with it? Done any sub workflows?
No. Too busy with other things, but looking forward to.
I think the sub workflows is incredibly exciting, though. It's something we've talked about for such a long time, and to actually have the tooling in place now, I think it'll just be an absolute, it'll revolutionize the way we can write pipelines and sort of port these tools and processes between the different pipelines, because it's so common that you find that people are doing very, very similar things. But I think this will just it'll change the community for the better.
Yeah. I'm really excited. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, just by watching like the discussions during the retreat of NF Core in Sweden, and then the hackathon in Barcelona, I was just like beside these guys, you and Harsh and everyone talking about it. It was very exciting just to hear about how it was going, how it could be, and we already have, I think, over 20 sub workflows, I think, right? So yeah. I haven't used it, but it's just by looking at it and seeing the discussions, following it, it's very amazing. And I agree with Chris, it's gonna just like modules, it's going to make it very different to the better.
I'm really excited about it for people building their own pipelines, actually. I think it's great for NF Core, and that's kind of fairly obvious. It will be able to speed up collaboration. But if you're building some custom pipeline where it's never going to be part of NF Core because, I don't know, you've got some requirements, it's got some bespoke stuff which is not common, but you'll be able to build like a fully fledged Nextflow pipeline at light speed now, because you'll just be able to grab a sub workflow for like, okay, QC, and then an alignment sub workflow, and then, downstream sub workflow, and then put your own little custom bit on the end. And it's like 4 commands, and you've got like a full Nextflow pipeline. It's like that. It was already pretty good with modules that you could just say like, I want an alignment module or a fast QC module. But now you can actually pull these chunks together, which are already wired up together with all the channels and all the internal logic. Like, that's just going to be a game.
Very nice.
Right, we should wrap up. We had a whole bunch of things to talk about lined up actually for this first episode. We weren't quite sure how long we were going to be talking for, but we've gone past 20 minutes already, which is kind of what we were thinking about, and we've covered like half the topics because I think we're too good at talking, guys. This is like well, it's pretty true to life, I guess. It's difficult to shut us up, but that's cool. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about in the kind of episodes coming up in the next podcasts. Just to wrap up then, I would say we've got a few kind of upcoming events as always. The next one that I'm aware of is there's a Genome Web seminar, this one, strategies for containing cloud computing costs. The registration URL is pretty long. I've made a little short URL there. It's just come up on the screen, or you can see it on the web page for the podcast as well, where you can go and register. So that's a live webinar going to happen on Thursday, December 15th, 2022, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think that's sometime in the evening if you're in Europe. So I guess that'll be sometime in the morning in Asia Pacific. There's going to be me and a guy from Gritstone Bio talking about cloud computing costs and kind of how to run your Nextflow pipelines in a good and cost saving way. It's quite good timing actually, because we've just been sort of talking about how we can save money ourselves with NF Core AWS tests, and like Marcel, you and I have just been talking about what we can do with NF Core and everything. So it'll be quite a fun, timely talk to give. What else coming up next? Yeah, Marcel, sorry, you shared your screen.
Accidentally shared my screen. I thought it would still wait for me to press the button. So we have this free and open source community in my region in Brazil. It's called Poti Livre, and we've been organizing a lot of events. And a nice event we have is we call Poti Day, which are like one-day events that every once in a while we organize, and sometimes we have some themes. And we were trying to organize for December one aimed at data analysis and data science, but unfortunately it won't happen in December. So we are probably organizing that in January. So if you are from the northeast of Brazil, we're going to be around Natal around this time in January. We're probably going to organize this at the Sebrae space, which is a very nice space for entrepreneurs and people working with health informatics and stuff like that, and IT in general. So probably it's going to happen in January. It's going to be like a one-day event with some discussions about data, including Nextflow and bioinformatics and so on.
Nice. And where can people find out more information if they're interested?
So far, I mean, we're probably going to link something on the website, but so far we don't have anything about it.
Okay.
I'm gonna share.
Keep an eye on the Nextflow podcast website for a link. Then I'll turn up. Or,
yeah.
Or give Marcel a shout on Slack. There we go. Nice.
So that's the website.
Yeah. Cool. Chris, do you want to tell us about what's been going on in?
And I think as well, we've just had our last bite size for the year. Yeah, of course. We've just had our last bite size talk for the year, which was last week. Edmund spoke about NF Test, which is really exciting, and that's up online if anyone's interested. I think now we're taking a wee break until January 17th, if I'm correct. We will have a talk by, I think it's Sophia, and she's me talking about Tax Profiler. So we will be advertising that again in the new year, but for now, that will be it for Bite Size, just so everyone can have a good Christmas break. But yeah, I think we're all looking forward to that, and of course we'll be starting that series weekly again in January after the 17th. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Just in case anyone's wondering what we're talking about, the Bite Size is a weekly seminar series run with the NF Core community. Very short talks, typically aim for 15 minutes. And if you're interested, that's the Twitter handle for NF Core, NF_core. So they all get announced on Twitter as well as on the NF Core Slack. Nice little bite-sized talks. Nice. And then in terms of the podcasts, we know it's been pretty kind of difficult to predict when the previous NF Cast ones have come out. They've been aiming for monthly, I think, but it's sort of a bit variable how often they've come out. But with this new format where we're doing both the interviews and the news and views, we're going to roughly aim for kind of weekly. So there'll be about an interview roughly every month or so, and then we're going to do kind of batches of about 6 news episodes at a time. So the next few weeks, looking kind of to the end of 2022 and the start of 23. Next week is Rob Lalonde. So on December 14th, 22, he's going to be talking to Robert Petit, who's many of you might know that name from the community. Rob's he's done loads of really cool stuff. He's the author of a Nextflow pipeline called Bacteriopia, which is massively used. He works in public health in the US and a really interesting guy. He's been heavily involved in the NF Core mentorships, which I think we'll talk about more in our next episode. He's mentoring for the second time just now. And yeah, basically stand-up guy, lovely chap, has really good shirts on the whole. So I'm quite looking forward to this one, actually, seeing what our Rob Lalonde can pull out of him in an interview format. And then the last one before Christmas will be us again. If you want to listen to our faces, if we haven't put you off completely from this format in the past 20 minutes. And we'll be chatting the 21st of December. We're going to record it before then, but we'll go out on the 21st of December. So a little festive treat for you all. And then we'll kick off again sometime in January. Most importantly of all, let us know what you think of this, please. There's that the channel's podcast Slack channel. This is on the Nextflow Slack. It's not on the NF Core Slack, on the Nextflow Slack. So please drop in there. Tell us if you like it, if you hated it, if you think we should stop after one episode, and tell us if there's any cool topics that you'd like to hear us discuss or like highlight to the community, or if you're curious about yourself. But most of all, yeah, tell us what you think of the format, and if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. Right, guys, want to hear feedback, or would you rather not know?
Cool.
That's great.
No, all feedback is good, bad or otherwise. It's good to,
and mostly news.
Good to know someone's watching or listening.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anyone out there? But yeah, as just a reminder, if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever else, it should also be available on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts. If there's any that are missing, there's a list of them on the NF Core, on the Nextflow website, Nextflow/podcasts. You will find a list of all the different places you can find the podcast recordings. If there's anywhere missing, let us know, because it's probably quite easy for us to set up to other places as well. And with that, we'll sign off and talk to you again, hopefully in a couple of weeks. Thanks for spending your time with us, and speak to you soon.
Thanks, and see you guys next time.
Bye. See everyone.